I stood on the porch of the house I'd called home for decades, rain soaking through my thin coat, as my parents slammed the door in my face.
"You're a burden now that he's gone," my mother hissed through the crack before it shut, her words slicing deeper than the cold wind.
With nothing but a battered suitcase clutched in my trembling hands, I realized the betrayal wasn't just about money. It was the erasure of my entire life, leaving me shattered and alone at 52, a widow with no one left to trust. The betrayal and the hidden fortune, the rain, pelted down like accusations as I trudged away from that house, my footsteps heavy on the wet pavement.
I'd lost my husband to cancer just 6 months ago, and now this. My own parents turning me out like yesterday's trash.
They'd always favored my younger brother, the golden child who could do no wrong. But I never imagined they'd stoop to this. "You're broke and we can't support you anymore," my father had said earlier that evening, his voice cold and final.
They didn't know about the quiet savings my husband and I had built, or so I thought. But as I walked, my mind replayed the argument that led to this moment.
It started innocently enough over dinner. My mother had been nagging me about finding a job, as if grieving wasn't work enough. "Your husband left you nothing," she sneered, poking at her food. "We can't keep feeding you forever." I tried to explain that I was still sorting through his affairs, that there might be something in the estate, but she waved me off. "Excuses. Your brother is thriving with his family. Why can't you be more like him?" My father nodded in agreement, his eyes avoiding mine. That's when the real venom came out. They accused me of being lazy, of relying on them because I had no spine. "Pack your things and go," my father ordered, standing up abruptly. "We're done here," I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. "Please just give me time. I'm your daughter." But my mother's response was a slap in the soul. "Not anymore. You've been nothing but disappointment since you married that man." That man, my husband, the love of my life, who worked tirelessly as an engineer to provide for us. They never approved of him, calling him beneath our family. Now, with him gone, they saw their chance to cut me loose. As I hailed a cab to the nearest motel, my hand brushed against something in my coat pocket, an old silver card, faded and forgotten. It was from a private bank my husband had mentioned once years ago during a late-night conversation. "If anything happens to me, check this," he'd said vaguely, tucking it away. I'd laughed it off then, but now, with nothing left, it was my only lead. The card had no name, just a number etched in elegant script. Desperation fueled me. I decided to visit the bank first thing in the morning. The next day, I walked into the sleek lobby of the private bank, feeling out of place in my rumpled clothes. The receptionist eyed me suspiciously, but when I showed her the card, her demeanor shifted. "One moment, ma'am," she said, picking up the phone. Minutes later, a manager, a sharp, dressed man in his 40s, escorted me to a private office. "Let's verify this," he said, swiping the card through a reader. His eyes widened as the screen lit up. He stared, then looked at me, then back at the screen. "This can't be right," he muttered, typing furiously. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Suddenly, he stood and locked the office door, then drew the blinds. "Ma'am, I need to confirm your identity immediately. This account, it's inactive for years, but the balance is substantial." My heart pounded. "How substantial?" I whispered. He hesitated, then turned the screen toward me. There it was, $1, $2 billion. I gasped, clutching the desk for support. "This belonged to my husband," I said, my voice shaking. "He must have set it up secretly." The manager nodded, explaining it was an offshore trust, invested wisely over decades, growing exponentially. My husband had been more than an engineer. He'd invented patented tech sold to a conglomerate, funneling the proceeds here to protect me from family greed. He'd known my parents' true colors. As the shock settled, anger bubbled up. They thought I was broke, worthless. But now, with this fortune, I could rebuild. Yet it wasn't just about money, it was about justice. The manager offered discretion, suggesting ways to access it safely. As I left the bank, wired with a starter fund, I felt a spark ignite. Revenge wasn't a whim, it was a plan forming. But first, I needed to understand why my parents had betrayed me so deeply. Little did I know, digging into our family history would reveal secrets that shattered everything I thought I knew. Uncovering family secrets and building alliances the weight of that dollar one. $2 billion secret pressed on me like a hidden armor as I checked into a modest hotel, far from my parents' prying eyes. I wasn't ready to flaunt it yet. Vulnerability still clung to me, but the revelation had cracked open a door to strength. That night, I lay awake, piecing together fragments of my husband's words. "Your family isn't what you think." He'd hinted once, but I'd dismissed it as paranoia. Now, with resources at my fingertips, I hired a private investigator discreetly through the bank's referrals. Dig into my parents' finances and history. I instructed him over a secure line, and my brothers too. Days turned into a week of quiet research. I kept a low profile, eating cheap meals and reflecting on my marriage. My husband had been my rock, shielding me from my family's subtle manipulations. They'd borrowed money from us over the years, never repaying, always with excuses. Now I wondered if they'd known about his success and resented it. The investigator's first report came via encrypted email. My parents had mounting debts, gambling for my father, lavish spending for my mother. But the kicker, they'd transferred assets to my brother recently, including the house deed, to protect it from creditors. It smelled like fraud. Emboldened, I reached out to my son, whom I hadn't seen in months due to the family rift. He lived across the state with his wife, and our calls had been strained. "Mom, what happened?" he asked when I finally dialed. His voice was laced with concern. I told him everything: the eviction, the card, the fortune. There was a long pause. "I knew something was off," he admitted. "Grandma's been bad-mouthing you to us, saying you're unstable. But Dad left me a letter before he died. He warned me about them." That letter changed everything. My son emailed a scan. My husband detailed how my parents had tried to sabotage our marriage early on, even forging documents to make it seem like he was unfaithful. He'd forgiven but never forgotten, building the trust fund as a safeguard. "Protect your mother." The letter urged my son. Tears flowed as I read it. My husband's love endured beyond death. My son and his wife drove over that weekend, and we huddled in the hotel room, plotting initial steps. "We need evidence," my son said, his wife nodding in agreement. She was a lawyer, sharp and compassionate. "If they're hiding assets, that's illegal. We can build a case." I felt a shift from isolated widow to part of a team. We pored over records, and she suggested auditing the family business, which my brother now ran. It turned out my parents had siphoned funds from it, using my husband's loans as cover. The betrayal deepened. They'd used me as a financial crutch while plotting to discard me. I started small acts of assertion. Using a fraction of the funds, I rented a small apartment and bought professional clothes. Then, I attended a grief support group where I met others who'd faced family betrayals. One woman shared her story of legal revenge through estate challenges. It inspired me. "Hit them where it hurts, their pride and pockets," she advised. I nodded, my resolve hardening, but tension rose when my mother called unexpectedly. "Where are you?" she demanded, her tone concerned. We were worried. I played along, voice trembling for effect. "I'm managing," I said softly. "But why did you do this?" She laughed bitterly. "You needed a push. Now come back and apologize." Apologize, rage simmered, but I stayed calm. "Maybe soon." I lied, hanging up. That call fueled me. They thought I was still weak. As we dug deeper, my son's wife uncovered a bombshell. My parents had a secret will, cutting me out entirely and giving everything to my brother. But it referenced an old inheritance from my grandparents that should have been mine. They'd forged signatures to claim it years ago.
This was fraud on a grand scale. We can sue, she said excitedly. I smiled for the FIRST Japanese, letter time and weeks revenge was crystallizing into a legal weapon. Yet, as I prepared to confront them subtly, a twist hit. My brother showed up at my apartment unannounced. "Sis, we need to talk," he said, eyes shifty. He didn't know about the money, but he sensed trouble. What he revealed next would force me to accelerate my plans, risking everything I'd rebuilt. The strategic confrontations and rising stakes, my brother's unexpected visit to my apartment, sent a chill down my spine, but I masked it with feigned surprise. "What are you doing here?" I asked, stepping aside to let him in. He looked around the modest space, smirking slightly. "Not bad for someone kicked out," he said, but his eyes darted nervously. We sat at the small kitchen table, tension thick as fog. "Mom and Dad sent me," he admitted finally. "They think you've gone off the deep end, want you to come home and contribute. I nearly laughed. "You mean pay rent in my own childhood home?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, things are tight. The business is struggling." That's when he dropped the act. "We know about your husband's insurance payout. It's not much, but it could help." My blood boiled. They'd snooped into my affairs. But I played dumb. "What pay out?" He left nothing. He pressed, "Don't lie. We have friends at the insurance company." Friends. More like bribes or connections from their shady dealings. I excused myself to the bathroom, texting my son quickly, "Brother here," pushing for money. His reply was swift, "Record it." I'd installed a discreet app on my phone earlier, per his wife's advice. Back at the table, I hit record subtly. "Tell me the truth," I said, voice steady now. "Why did they really kick me out?" He hesitated, then spilled. "They found old letters from your husband. He threatened to cut them off financially years ago. They panicked, thinking you'd discover their loans. It was theft, but his confession went further. The family business, it's built on Grandpa's inheritance, which was meant for you. They altered the will." My heart raced. This matched what we'd uncovered. "So they stole from me." I whispered. He nodded, guilt flashing. "But it's water under the bridge. Come back and we'll share after eviction." I ended the conversation politely, but inside, strategy brewed. With the recording, my son's wife filed for an audit of the family business anonymously, citing irregularities. We also prepared a lawsuit for the forged will. I felt empowered, no longer the grieving widow, but a force reclaiming her due. Yet, emotional layers peeled. I grieved the family illusion, but it fueled my growth. I started therapy, learning to channel pain into purpose. "You're transforming," my therapist said, "from victim to victor." Tensions escalated when my parents noticed the odd notice. My mother called, furious. "What have you done? This is harassment." I remained calm. "I don't know what you mean." She screamed accusations, calling me ungrateful, vindictive. "You'll regret this," she threatened, but her words bounced off my emerging armor. I hung up, heart pounding but steady. My son and his wife became my anchors. Over dinners, we refined the plan, expose their fraud publicly through legal channels, force asset liquidation, and reclaim my share, potentially bankrupting them psychologically. "Make them beg," my son suggested, but I tempered it. "No, make them reflect." Revenge was emotional, stripping their facade. A twist came via the investigator. My parents had another secret, a half-sibling from my father's affair, whom they'd paid off for years using family funds. This explained the debts. "We can use this," my son's wife said, "leverage for settlement." I agreed, but caution ruled. I met the half-sibling discreetly, a kind woman in her 40s. They abandoned me. She shared tearfully. We bonded over shared pain. She joined our alliance, providing more evidence. As legal papers served, my brother panicked, calling me. "Stop this, we'll lose everything."
I replied coolly, "You already lost me." He begged for mercy, revealing his wife's involvement in the forgeries. Another layer, his family complicit. I recorded that too. The stakes rose when my parents retaliated, spreading rumors in our community that I was mentally unstable, trying to isolate me further. Friends called, concerned. It hurt, but I countered with truth, sharing select details. Support shifted my way. Vulnerability turned to strength as allies grew. Yet, as the court date loomed, a shocking revelation from my half. Siblings' documents threatened to append our case, proof that the dollar won. $2 billion trust was tied to the family inheritance in ways I never imagined, potentially making my revenge a double-edged sword. The climax of justice and final empowerment, the revelation from my half. Siblings' documents hit like a thunderbolt, but it didn't break me, it sharpened my focus. The papers showed my husband's tech patents were partially inspired by my grandfather's old inventions, which my parents had stolen and buried. The trust fund included royalties traced back to that lineage, meaning part of the dollar won. $2 billion was arguably family property. This could complicate the lawsuit, my son's wife warned, poring over the files in our strategy session. They might counter, sue for a share. Panic flickered, but I pushed it down. No, I said firmly, this proves their theft even more. We'll use it to bury them legally. My transformation was evident. From the woman who'd trembled on that rainy porch to one orchestrating a masterful takedown. We amended our filings, including this link, demanding full restitution plus damages for emotional distress. The court hearing was a battlefield of words. My parents arrived smug, with a slick lawyer my brother had hired. This is a family dispute. Their attorney argued, no fraud here. But our evidence was ironclad, recordings, forged signatures, financial trails. When my half-sibling testified, detailing years of hush money, the judge's expression hardened. My mother gasped, my father paled. I took the stand, voice unwavering. They kicked me out, thinking I was broke. I said, recounting the eviction. But they stole my inheritance long before. Cross-examination was brutal. Their lawyer probed, "Isn't this revenge for personal grudges?" I met his gaze. "It's justice. They betrayed their daughter." The room fell silent. Even my brother avoided my eyes. Twists unfolded. My mother broke down, admitting the forgeries under pressure. "We did it for the family," she sobbed. For the family, excluding me, the judge ruled in our favor: asset freeze, forced sale of the house and business, restitution to me and my half-sibling. My parents faced fines for fraud. My brother lost his position, his wife implicated in minor charges. They weren't ruined financially. We left them enough to survive. But their pride shattered. Community whispers followed. Their facade crumbled. Post-trial, they begged for reconciliation. My mother showed up at my new home, a modest but elegant condo I'd bought outright. "Please forgive us," she pleaded, tears genuine now. I let her in, but boundaries held. Forgiveness comes with accountability. I said, "Acknowledge the pain." We talked for hours. Apologies flowed, revelations too. My father joined later, humbled. It wasn't instant healing, but seeds planted. Emotional revenge, making them face themselves. My brother reached out separately. "I'm sorry," he said over coffee. His wife had left him a twist of karma. We rebuilt slowly, him learning humility. My son beamed at family gatherings, his wife praising my courage. "You've inspired us," she said. With the fortune, I started a foundation for widows facing family betrayal, channeling wealth into good. Therapy continued. I dated tentatively, embracing life. The vulnerable widow was gone, replaced by a fearless woman, strategic and whole. As I stood on my balcony, overlooking the city, peace settled. Revenge wasn't destruction, it was reclamation. I'd won not just money, but myself, worth. If you enjoyed this story, Please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments.